following presentation is part of the Beyond the Blast Doors network.
Shannon Moran and Pete Fletcher. Hey, good evening, everybody. How are you?
Hello.
Hello, Shannon. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. Very good.
Good. First of all, some of you may have noticed that we took the name Ammo off, but it's just for tonight. Dave is not with us tonight. Dave has opted. He for some strange reason he put his marriage vows ahead of doing a streaming Star Wars episode. I don't know. Sometimes you got to make life choices, and I guess that was his. But
priorities.
Priorities, right? But I'm really happy we have with us tonight Shannon Moran. Shannon is the host of the show Postcards from the Galaxy's Edge, which is also part of the Beyond the Blast Doors network. I'm having trouble speaking. I'm used to David opening. Like I get 30 seconds of just staring at the screen while he goes off. This is why he's the pro and I'm not. So Shannon, tell us a little bit about Postcards and tell me how you're doing. It is like 3 a.m. in the UK right now. What are you doing here?
Well, first of all, I was very nicely asked and very big shoes to fill here with David, so hopefully I can do it justice. But yes, Postcards from the Galaxy's Edge is about a podcast about 1.5 years old now, and basically every episode is broadcast from a canon planet or moon, and then we talk about kind of various subjects. My podcast is not going to be one of those where you get like the news, like hot breaking. That's for what this, streaming Star Wars is and things like that. But I also started doing kind of like some think pieces. Like I did one called The Moment Star Wars Spoke to Me as a Woman, and we have another episode coming up, another chapter, The Moment Star Wars Spoke to Me as a Father, and we have 3 more in the works. It's just, trying to find those great kind of relevant days to release them and things. So yeah.
That's great. Yeah, the when Star Wars Spoke to Me as a woman it's so well done, and it really I think I mentioned to you, my son who has sometimes the attention span of a housefly was and loves Clone Wars and things. He actually sat and he watched it, which says a lot about what you put together there, which is really fantastic. Yeah, as we mentioned, David got married today, and the boy, he live streamed his wedding today. I don't know how many of you got a chance to go see it, but that's fantastic. The cool part about this is the guy marrying them is actually his father. So if you do get the opportunity to bother Dave on social media over the next couple days, make sure to say hello and congratulations. We couldn't be happier for him there. So, but Shannon, let's talk about DisneyPlus, and let's talk about things that have been going on. And we've spent the last couple of weeks, sort of in that limbo between Clone Wars and whatever series is going to be next, probably Mandalorian. But we had an event happen this week in the fandom that is affectionately known as Make Solo 2 Happen, and the reason it makes sense, I think, to talk about it a little bit here on Streaming Star Wars is because if Solo 2 happens, it'll probably happen on Disney Plus. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, that's kind of my speculation, especially now also with kind of the just world situation. But yeah, I mean, I was well chuffed you could probably hear some English slang coming out now, but well chuffed, which means very happy for the guys at TRB and everything like that. And we
really
had some
successful event, super successful event. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, it was trending here in the UK at about by noon. Sadly, it didn't keep trending. I wanted it to. I kept trying, but other things were happening with the prime minister and things. But anyway, no politics on this show. But no, I do think it makes sense for it to be a Disney Plus show now, because I think like David actually touched on this. in yesterday's episode, because also you'll have that ability to let kind of the characters breathe. So of course we want to see more of Han and Chewie, but then I really myself am interested in Enfys Nest. I almost said Enfys Best. Sorry, Enfys Nest, and other characters, like what's going to happen with Kira and Maul on Dathomir and things like that. Like they really opened it up. And I have a confession. I'm actually a converted. I walked in, I saw the film first by myself and was just kind of like, it's a bit fan servicey, but then actually went with my better half and loved it. And because of their love, I was like, okay, actually, I'm enjoying this more. And then like just talking to people, and I was like, do you know what? Actually, yeah, this is a lot of fun. And so yes, I am one of the converted. And
I totally agree with you. It's funny, when I first saw Make Solo 2 happen, when I first saw the film Solo, I don't know what is wrong with me tonight. But the here I am. You're like, you have a special guest host, and you dropped the ball. Dave would be so proud of me. I'm very excited.
Oh, you're fine.
But one of the I too, I kind of lost I was a little bit sort of put off my rails a little bit with the whole naming of Solo. I was like, we don't need to see his name, and that like kind of pulled me out of it for a little bit. But then once I kind of got through that and got over that, and then made it through the rest of the movie, which is totally fun. And it's totally fan servicey. It's an origin story. But at the end of the day, it's become one of those fun Star Wars movies that you can sort of pick up at any point in the day or any point in the movie and just sort of watch it and go with it. And the benefit, I think, of bringing it to a DisneyPlus as a series and not a film is just for those reasons, is because I wrote a piece on beyondtheblastdoors.com where I listed out what 8 episodes might look like. And the reason I think it works is because Han Solo's character is sort of the most serial type of character that we have. You can even hear Bob Kane saying at the beginning of each episode, last week we left Han Solo hanging from a blah blah blah, and so I think it'd be kind of great to see it that way. And also, like you said, there's so many characters that we want to see. We want to give more space to Enfys Nest. We want to give more space to Kira. We want to visit Dathomir and see what that's all about.
Yes.
At the same time, we have to see more of Jabba the Hutt, and we want to understand where that comes from. I would love to see, maybe if they really want to put Boba Fett back on screen, they put him back on screen in a Solo series, so you can see why Han Solo reacted the way he did when he heard Boba Fett was on the sail barge and that sort of thing. So I think there's a lot of opportunity that could really be explored in a series. And I also feel like timing wise, it could connect to the Kenobi series, which would be
that's true. Yeah,
so,
I didn't think about that.
I don't know. They haven't called me to write the stories yet, so I'm still waiting. Still waiting. So, but they have done a really nice job of kind of filling the gap and keeping us engaged with this gallery series, which I have to say, I was excited about to get started because I love behind the scenes stuff. You live behind the scenes. Maybe let's hear before we go into what the gallery series has given us in those first 5 episodes. For the few people watching us who might not know what your career is, it's really perfect to have this conversation with you. So tell people what you do and what some of the stuff you've done lately.
Of course. So my day job is I do work in visual effects, but what I am is what they call a visual effect editor. So I'm not like a compositor where you see all the fancy pieces put together. What my job is kind of a revolving door. So we will get the edit from the client, and it's my job to make sure that edit stays intact to the frame. So each shot comes in, we'll get like a sheet called a contact sheet, or it has kind of various names, but you'll get all the camera lens info, the frame count, something called handles, which is additional frames on either side. Pardon me. And that way, if they want to adjust the edit after we deliver the shot, so they can slide it back and forth. It sometimes can be 8 frames on either side, sometimes it's 24. But then what we also do is basically we have to then give all this information, and we have like in-house kind of naming conventions. Naming conventions and organization is a big thing. So we then send it to the artists do all their magic, they give it back to us, and by kind of chatting with production and with the clients and everything, there's a lot of liaisoning basically.
Okay, cool.
And then we give it back to the client, and then they put it back in their edit, and then that's when they add the final kind of score and color grade, graphics, all the kind of final, what they call online part of post-production before it goes to. So visual effects are kind of like the second to the last, that's very layman terms, but kind of the second to the last part of things. But then so some of the projects before that, I was actually a promotional and marketing editor for a visual effect company, and that was actually my first introduction to Mr. Favreau. I was the promotional editor for the company I used to work for the Jungle Book. And I would do all the what we call technical breakdown reels, where I would show kind of these wonderful comp artists would make these great breakdowns, and I would set them to music. And I really had to be specific on my edit, because it wasn't about me, the editor, it's about the artists and the work. So, and it was funny the first time I ever, because I want to disclose up top, when I say I work with Jon Favreau, I do not want people to think he was like sitting right there.
Right, he's not like calling you every day, like, hey,
yeah,
Shannon,
right. Yeah, it was about 3,000 people. It was so, yeah. I mean, I got my challenge coin, but yes, it's not like we were literally sitting right there. But I remember the first time was my kind of supervisor at the time. He's like, oh yeah, we have to get your edits approved by John. And I was like, John as in, he's like, Favreau? And I was like, oh, he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, just need a minute, because, this... girl from small town America was not expecting to all of a sudden be working in London and then having Jon Favreau. But later, then I did transition to being a VFX editor, because obviously roles and things change within a company. Right. And I got put on The Lion King, which they kind of always knew with the success of The Jungle Book. Lion King was a no-brainer. Like, I think I literally was there when certain high-ups were like, yeah, we're going to totally like pitch to do The Lion King. And I kid you not, within the next week, they were already bidding for it and everything. Like, it was, and it made sense because of all the big cats and the fur technology and things. Because something a lot of visual effects do is and we will touch on this because it's an interesting counterpoint to what John says in the gallery. There's a lot of thing in visual effects, especially softwares and renderers and things, are what they call proprietary. They are written in-house. Okay. So, that's why sometimes, like, a great example is Rocket the Raccoon in Guardians of the Galaxy. Some scenes, his fur look completely different, and that's because different companies render different scenes. And so their fur render technologies are different because they're all written in-house. So that's why, even though you share assets, right, sometimes it's not quite the same. So that's kind of an example. So
that's why the visual effects houses compete. It's not because you just happen to have more people and a better price or something. It's because you have a technology that advances and it's better to work with.
Oh, and it's definitely down to price too. Oh yes, the big thing about price. That's why the big controversy about cats. But anyway, we will not open that can of worms.
Right, but let me ask you though, now when you watch something like Guardians of the Galaxy, you are probably one of 1,000 people who will be like, see, his fur is totally different in this scene, whereas I'd be like, his fur looked pretty cool in the movie. So, but like, it's subtleties though, right? But that's the difference. It pulls you in or not, right? So
it really does. Where I see it the most is what they call digidoubles, where it's like the digital humans and things. Because unfortunately, right now, there's because a lot of physics are involved when you're making these digital creatures or people or whatever. Right. There's no physics, so the computer has to add physics, and you have to put in an algorithm and everything. But sometimes they do this ragdoll effect. So like when you have the Terminator falling down the road, it just looks fake, or Legolas running across like a falling bridge. Right. You're just like, and even the everyday person might not know why, but it's because of weight. And this is why, going into what this stuff to talk about in the gallery, why using practical effects it's so much better for more things than just like literally lighting references. Like it's a weight, a gravity, because it doesn't matter how much computer simulation you do, the eye, even an untrained eye, will get it. You know, it's same with like digital eyes, like seeing that little specular kind of highlight in my eyes from the light.
Right.
You can try to get that in digidoubles and it's close, but it's very difficult.
Yeah. Well, and they did talk a lot about this week's episode was practical effects. Last week was technology, and so the timing to have you on is perfect. Thank you, David, for choosing this week to get married.
Yes, thank you.
Very well planned out by him. But one of the things it's starting to take a little bit of hold on the internet is what I loved about this episode was we finally got to learn a little bit more about the child, the baby, as she called him. And I have to share this. My favorite part was when they showed the sketches of what Baby Yoda almost looked like. And on the left, this one over here on the left of the screen, that's actually, I think that's the way I feel. I'm really glad that they didn't go that way. But I love I like the one on the right because it does actually look like a baby Yoda. It doesn't look like a different sort of creature like they ended up doing. But there's so much that went into the child. I think there may be they even talked a lot about how it just having it on set never, so to your point, it helped from an effects perspective, but it also helped the actors. I like the story of what's his name, Werner Herzog, like playing to the puppets, forgetting that the puppeteers were all around him. One of the things I wanted to get your feedback on, because you worked on the Dark Crystal series on Netflix.
Yes.
And it was funny when you and I first started talking, I think that was a year ago, and you were you'd mentioned you were on Dark Crystal, and I love the original Dark Crystal. And then it was interesting because you started talking about doing visual effects and all the CG and all that stuff. And to me, I was like, well, but they're using puppets again, like they did back in 1980 or whatever year it was that they made the original. But maybe you could explain to me, because I don't totally get it. What they do? When do they add? Not when, obviously, it's at the end. But what makes them decide? And what kinds of things do they add to a physical puppet? Because again, they even talked about with IG-88 or IG-11 rather, how they used his movement and they acted against him, but yet they still replaced a lot of him in digital.
Yes, to speak to like the Dark Crystal in particular, the interesting thing with that was it was all the puppets, everything, and actually there's some great breakdowns that have literally just gone on the DNEG YouTube channel that has some of the breakdowns and things and how they were done. And you're going to see they're just pretty much set extensions and things. I think the biggest thing that they had to add was for the Skeksis, so they're like the big bird-like creatures, was the tongues. They had rubber tongues, but you can't move them. And so they would animate them when they talked kind of, and it was hilarious because some of the animation, it was like, and you'd have to like pull them back and be like, okay, guys, that's a little much. But you wanted them to obviously be these these nasty creatures. But we literally would go through dailies for hours. I kid you not. Like we'd be in dailies, as we call it. Where you sit in a dark room and that's another thing editors that we do. What I do is control the sessions in the back. So we're playing a shot, reverse, pause, all this kind of stuff. And you're just seeing tongues constantly. So that was something, because what it's called is kind of called like facial augmentation. So it's just highlighting, something that's already there. And they kind of touched on this with the Queel. Queel? I think that's how you say it.
Queel, yeah.
And it was the same with the Gelflings. Like, they definitely animated, but you can't get them to smirk, and so that's something that we literally would just take kind of a single kind of area and manipulate it. And there's some sliders and things that you do in an animation software that can pull. But again, what requires that is they have to make a digital copy.
Okay.
So they can literally have it, ooh, do not. Sorry, I'm getting a pop-up. but someone in Mexico apparently is trying to log into my iTunes. So okay,
Right.
so that's why Jon Favreau mentioned they had a digital version of the puppet,
Right.
is because sometimes you need that just for those subtle, but it has to be perfect. It has to be completely created. So then that way they can just basically go over it. It's like almost like a mask and digitally manipulate and things. So in terms of the Dark Crystal, it was a lot of that and some rod removals. I said this on my episode with Sherilyn on Wednesday, who actually worked on the 90s show Dinosaurs and things, that it was like, yes, we had the rods and we did even go, do we keep the rods? Because that's kind of part of its charm or whatever. But it was obviously for digital set extensions and things. It just, it had to go and things. And painting out puppeteers, we actually missed one and had to do an emergency kind of shot after the TV show premiered. And we're like, okay.
I was going to ask you, have you ever, like, has a show gone out and then they like pull it out of the stream so that they can fix it? Or
I guess so. That was, I mean, I won't disclose what, because obviously I'm not sure if I'm breaking any NDAs there, but yes, there was one that kind of slipped through, but it was very dark and it was like just like the top of the puppeteer's head. But it was there. And then once you see it, you can't unsee it. So it was one of those like, so yeah, we had a kind of a quick like, oh crap, we need to sort that out. But
what I loved about this episode, and I would love to see the reel. I can't remember which artist it was, but they were talking about how they were creating reels where they were trying to take some of the action from the original trilogy and recreate it digitally so that they could get the same sort of feel for the way a ship might move. And I like the way they talked about sort of subtly improving it versus, just sort of keeping, trying to match it exactly. And I think that was, I think, the Baby Yoda child puppet thing is a miracle of technology. And it's interesting to see the CG Yoda from Phantom Menace versus the puppet Phantom Menace, and the way the technology has evolved so much since then. Because it doesn't look like they did much sort of cleanup, or I don't know. I mean, I don't know what I'm even looking for, but it was very much like raw puppet as much as possible, and that actually worked against the character in that regard, I think. So.
We're talking about the Phantom Menace one, the puppet. Yeah. I think because this is what I kind of, when I analyze kind of original trilogy, sequel trilogy, prequel trilogy from a visual effect kind of standpoint, I view it as in, obviously, the original trilogy was just groundbreaking. Like there was an amazing, yesterday, I believe, there was the 40th anniversary. ILM did like a live stream kind of chatting to everybody. That was the groundbreaking. The prequels was like, okay, now we have this new technology. Let's push it as far as it can go. Let's really just stretch it out. I mean, I have a career thanks to that. I mean, the name escapes me, but the editing software that George Lucas and then later became Avid, and now we have our Adobe Premieres. I mean, kids now can edit on their phones, and that's thanks to George Lucas, and they don't even know it. But then what I love about the sequel trilogy and now the Mandalorian and things is we have these people working in the industry that are either from the original trilogy or the prequel trilogy era, and they found this beautiful balance of the practical and the visual. And that's what I loved about episode 4 and 5 here of the gallery. Is episode 4 we're talking about the visual technology, kind of what we call visual effects, and then episode 5 we're talking what we call special effects, and that's things on set. That's kind of the big difference. Sometimes when people are like, I had to correct my mom, what's the difference between special effects and visual effects? Special effects is on set. Visual effects is after, kind of thing.
See,
so,
now I've learned something. See, that's me and your mom are in the same spot. We're like, it's all special effects to me. Yeah.
Yeah. It's endearing. And it's just like, I don't mean that in like any, it's just like minor detail, but yeah.
But so interesting that you say that, because we've talked a little bit about the volume, and that is visual effects on set in a way, right? It's I was online with what's her name, Maggie Lovett, actually, who was a guest on my show not too long ago. She's an actress as well, and she had posted something about the volume, and we went back and forth on a couple things about how the mystical magic hour of filming
Yes.
is no longer a thing, right? I mean, you had that 1 hour of sunlight, which was just the perfect color and the perfect intensity to get that, but they can get any of that whenever they want now. And so um, we had talked a little bit about how the volume could help us in this time of COVID to get back to filming quicker. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, because Cannon blah, 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 had asked me kind of like what was my thoughts about like the volume and things like that. First of all, let me just say all of us are totally like geeking out and like London. I can't speak obviously because I work the London side of visual effects. Obviously, Vancouver, Montreal, India is another kind of beast. But just yeah, it's really really groundbreaking. And I mean, like that opening part of that episode of episode 4 was like memory lane because they're talking
Yeah.
about because I could tell by working on projects with Jon Favreau, he literally is taking, okay, I've learned from this. I'm
Right.
going to learn mistakes I made on this. I'm going to go from that. So like I knew about the LED screens for the Jungle Book.
Right.
And then Lion King was a whole, and what people, I don't know if people know, is that man was, let's check this out, was doing this. He was doing The Lion King, which was a 2-year project. And while
Right.
doing that project, he was doing The Mandalorian,
Right.
filming Spider-Man Homecoming, and oh, by the way, doing a little film called Solo. I'll never forget, we didn't actually, because like of the time change, we didn't have an evening client session because he was at a Solo premiere. I'm like, oh, I know where Jon Favreau's at. He's at Solo.
He's busy today. Yeah.
And
Wow.
he
At the same
actually
time,
came
he's changing the way filmmaking is being done while he's in films, while he's producing films,
while he's
while
producing, yeah.
directing films. He's when I talked to Brian J. Jones, who wrote Lucas's biography, we were trying to figure out who the next Lucas is, and I don't want to overstate it, but Favreau is pretty close because of just, I think what made Lucas so great was he was not, most directors at the time would understand what the limitations were of making the story they wanted to make and stop there. And George would be like, that's not good enough. And to hear the way Favreau talks in the roundtables of the gallery, you get the sense that he's just like, I almost feel like, and this is a dangerous phrase to say, but I almost feel like there's times he's even like kind of shushing Kathleen Kennedy to be like, no, this is what I wanted to do, so I went and I did it. And I love that about him, and I think that's what's so cool about him and Filoni together, is because Filoni knows how to tell the Star Wars story better than anybody else. We've said that on the show 100 times, and I think that's what makes Filoni so amazing. Is he's the nerd at the table. He gets it. He gets Star Wars, and he's coupled with a guy who is the technology kind of envelope pusher that Lucas was, and you had the opportunity to work with him on things. I loved seeing things like how the technology sort of started as sort of a way to shade on Mowgli during Jungle Book, and so it appeared that there were elephants going by that they would later draw in. But so you worked in all those technologies, right?
Yeah, so I think because I make no secret of it, I am a big Favreau stan, but I think it's because those conversations you're hearing the roundtable, I listened to that every night on the phone because he was at Skywalker Sound. So when they were doing the voiceovers, showing the voiceover booths, I was like, I recognize that room. That's
yeah.
Skywalker Sound. I was like, I used to see that video and make sure everything was working on TVIPs. But
That's awesome.
he really does talk like that. Like he really is so passionate and excited, but he also, which I think is very important, is big about story and how does technology help tell the story,
Right.
that it's not a gimmick, because that's why I wanted to kind of demonstrate. So he's doing Lion King, which is completely a virtual production, and at the same time doing The Mandalorian, which is now a very practical with this visual effect with the volume. Like to be able to, to be in those two different headspaces
Right.
is incredible. And it's but no, I think that's the biggest takeaway I have about like Favreau and kind of listening to him talk and seeing the various projects is he's very much about story. Because I know for The Lion King, he very much would be like, okay, well, how does this help the story? How does this help the story? He's always going on and on and on about story. And that's very important because this is just my take. I think that was sometimes my gripe for the prequels, was it was like, oh, we have all this amazing visual effects, but what about the story?
Right,
That's
right.
just me.
Well,
People
no,
might be
and you're
different
not
on
wrong.
that.
You're not wrong, and I've said before that I remember vividly, when I was a kid, there was a magazine called Starlog that we would. It was like
Yes.
that was the internet before it happened every year, every month. And I remember reading an article about this movie Revenge of the Jedi, which was not yet out. There was some pictures of the sand barge, and there was a quote from George saying something like, you never want to just because I can build these sets doesn't mean I need to show these sets. And that was his approach to telling the stories. And to me, I always felt like the prequels he started to get into, ooh, look what I can do. And look, without the prequels, you don't get Jurassic Park with it, or well,
Exactly.
you don't get, actually Jurassic Park came before. But anyway, you
It
they're
yeah.
around the same, but you don't get where we are in the way stories can be told. I mean, there's literally, as we see in Mandalorian, there's no limitation. There's nothing they can say. Let's have a child that comes from Yoda's species. Let's have a robot that walks. Let's have an actress in an Ugnaught suit, and let's pretend to go down a lava flow, and it's all doable, and it all is because
Yeah.
the story needs it, right? So it's wild.
And it can be filmed on set.
Yeah.
That was the biggest thing I got with the kind of episode 4 technology, was when they were showing how, like, the camera was moving against the volume and things, like what the digital camera was seeing.
Yep.
I mean, it's a little disorienting when you're not like in it, but then the camera, and it's funny that they had to put the parallax definition, but I think that was kind of added afterwards because they kept referencing it. But yeah,
Right.
it's
Right.
what makes something have depth, and that's a very big thing that's talked about in visual effects. So to be able to do that on stage, and I mean, the biggest thing for me was they were building the digital sets and assets before they were on set, and then they could literally just kind of go bloop and just swap it around, change
Mm.
it around. I mean, it's obviously maybe not that simple, but
Right.
it's very exciting because, little funny story, you have a reflective character. So of
Right.
course it's going to reflect it. And they did mention this, where it's like, if you have green, it's terrible to try to comp out and things. And
Right.
one of the reasons why, actually, in The Last Jedi, that the hangar looks the way it does with all those lights hanging down, it's because Phasma's helmet was reflective and was reflecting the stage lights. So they were like,
Hmm.
well, we're not going to paint it out. We're just going to extend the set to look like this and things. But now with the void, I keep saying the void, I told you, with the volume, you don't have to worry about. And so to like have things where they could time, the Trandoshans
Yeah.
going across in his helmet, and these are all done on set.
Yeah.
Like that would be a visual effects shot where you would have, hundreds of versions to get just right, and then there they literally can do it. Like that just, it makes me so, as you can tell, it makes me so excited because, and I think it's come at just the right time, because with COVID-19, you also have a very controlled set,
Yeah. Yeah.
because you can have the builders build the sets, like the kind of set extensions or whatever in the workshop. You put it in the camera crew. I mean, it could be a very small, controlled set
Yeah.
and things. And and they also explained things like, it's a game technology. It's the same people,
Right.
Epic Games. Like, so I know people will know them more as Fortnite, but I mean,
Right.
none of this stuff is, again, owned by a company. So they just put it together. So what makes that very exciting, which I'm hoping, I'm hearing rumors, but hoping it's going to come to London, and then that's going to jumpstart the Cassian show and the
Yeah.
Obi-Wan show and things like that, because that technology, because trust me, we're all sitting here ready to go, because there's a bit of a lull right now, but
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
already going to happen before the COVID-19.
Well,
But now it's like,
it's interesting that you're saying that, because one of the things I think I might have even said on one of the earlier episodes of streaming Star Wars is, we're getting to a point where the reason one of the things that held back the creation of live action Star Wars was the creation of sets, right? So if you wanted to create a hangar, 3 months ago, 4 or 5, 6 months ago, actually, yeah, about 6, 7 months ago, my thinking was, okay, now you could just take all those sets that survived the sequel trilogy and move them around, etc. You don't even need sets anymore. You need the basic. You need the floor and any sort of foreground things, but I'm still blown away by this set from whichever episode it was that had Bill Burr in it, where they were
Oh,
in the
5.
ship. Yeah, episode 5, right?
Yeah.
The I would have believed that they built a giant hangar set for that episode, where they're just standing in there, and there's so much going on in the background, and it's all. I think it was in the last episode. One of the um, directors or producers was talking about how they would be sitting in the room, and they would see something, and they'd be like, oh, that's on fire, but no, it's just, it's just a video. The video
Mhm.
wall is showing something. So it's really, really quite interesting. Before I forget, I just want to mention the folks who are joining us in the chat. We have Nick Milky. We have, this is David so much better at this stuff. We have Nick Milky. We've got Gilster. We got Ion Cannon. We've got Framey, Mr. Rez. We have Hollow
Oh,
Chronicles,
hi,
Hello
Rez.
Boys. Ion Cannon is here with us. Rural Farm Boy. Matthew Harrington is with us. We have a whole bunch. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. If we got a little bit of time left, if you want to go ahead and share this on Twitter, we'd really appreciate it. Let's add to the conversation. We're having a lot of fun tonight with getting Shannon's perspective. It's one thing to watch the show and sort of soak it in ourselves, but to ask, this is our chance to ask that extra question that we couldn't ask them on the show. What do you think is going to be the biggest impact from what we've gotten in from a technology standpoint? I mean, volume is a game changer, but are there other pieces of the visual effects world that are changing here, or are sort of an evolution? Because what I feel like, what's strange is usually your biggest technology jumps happen in films, right? In the big tentpole things. Whereas I feel like the volume alone will change major motion pictures as well.
Mm. Yeah, I definitely agree with you because, like, Lion King, I mean, again, Jungle Book kind of started it, but then Lion King took the whole hog of what they call virtual production. And
Mhm.
I'm starting to see that, I can't quite name them, but on other upcoming projects, that's starting to become the precedent. And
Mhm.
it's all it takes is one. But then obviously, the thing about visual effects is, yes, there's the big 5 or 6 companies that kind of compete with each other. But at the end of the day, we all just want to achieve the same goal. So we do talk to each other and kind of go, oh, how did you do this? Oh,
Right.
okay. Yeah. I mean, obviously you kind of want to keep it close to your chest, but at the same
Right.
time, this technology is exciting and to share. So you actually, I never thought about that. You bring up a very good point that, yeah, most of those are. I mean, for me, the biggest one was obviously Jurassic Park was
Mhm.
the biggest one that transitioned from stop motion to this. And I still think those 1993, dinosaurs hold up. But again,
Yep.
I feel personally, this is just my take, I feel they hold up better than some of the Fallen Kingdom stuff because they're more animatronic. But I bet some
Right.
of my ILM buddies are probably like cringing right now, going, no, like, I'm not ever dissing the work because let me tell you, those artists do some incredible work. I'm just saying
Yeah.
that it's good to see that balance of animatronic and thing. But that's why I think this volume's got everyone talking because
Yeah.
it's just the you can't even fathom kind of what the possibilities are until other people try it and kind of add their own spin on it and
Yeah.
things. I mean, James Cameron, he's been doing virtual production since 2008, 2007.
Right.
I mean, it's funny now with knowing what I know, because I wasn't in visual effects back then,
Mhm.
watching the behind the scenes for the Avatar films, he was doing all of that. So I can't say that the Lion King revolutionized that. I'm just saying they kind of were able to make it more, I guess, streamlined or whatever. But he's been, James Cameron's been doing virtual production for the Avatar films and things. So, I mean, and that was on major motion capture
Yeah. Yeah.
stages. I think the biggest thing for me is the volume. It makes it a nice, quaint. You're not having to have, because right now, especially, I think it's really going to help visual effects for TV really
Yeah.
skyrocket because TV doesn't have the budget as much. It's getting better, but not every show. I mean, Game of Thrones and things like that really kind of pushed that. But
Yep.
as someone who is now working predominantly in TV visual effects, you're kind of seeing they're like, they want to try to get to that film level. So with the volume, that's going to help in so many ways. But then it's just, the editor in me is like, it's getting that communication of how do you get the stuff on set? How do you get it back? And
Right.
yeah,
Right. Yeah. Well, and I
you
think it's
know.
I wonder what else Game of Thrones would have done had they had, maybe we wouldn't have had a stunted last season because the budget would have been more manageable or something. I don't know. We have a question from Framey, which he said they say, because it's the two of them, husband and wife, just wondering what factors constrain the size that a volume could be built to, and could we see far larger versions in the future? You know a little bit more about how it works than I do. Is it limited by size right now?
I'll be honest, I'm not 100%. I do know it was like 270 degrees, but I think that might have just been like limited to the back lot that they were on.
Right.
I don't think it would do a full like 360 because then you kind of have to get the camera crews in there, and you're not. I mean, 270 is pretty good.
Right.
Like that's
Well,
a
and with the
proper
parallax
curve.
stuff and the video game technology, you don't really need that, right? Because it changes with the
Correct.
move of the camera. So
So, I mean, I guess really, yeah, I don't know. I think it just depends how much of the practical stuff you want to put in there,
yeah,
kind of thing. So I don't think it's limited per se, but again, I think it's back to that. The combinations are endless. It's
right,
just, yeah, like, so I'm sorry, Frammy guys. I hope I kind of answered that question, but yeah, I don't think we don't even know the limitations
right.
yet.
Well,
I'm more excited to see what people take and run with it, like adding more stuff to it, kind of things.
yeah, it's interesting because it's one of the things that's so amazing about Mandalorian to me is the ability to mix the volume sets with sometimes, like, I think that was sort of the problem with the earliest of quote unquote virtual sets, which you can't even call them that, but sort of like backlit and that sort of thing, a back rear projection and things. There was a certain feel, like it used to be, and this is really dating myself, but like I remember like the Hitchhiker's Guide television series from the UK, where you could tell when they were filming outside and you could tell when they were filming inside, because there was such a dramatic difference in the just because they were using different cameras and things. Whereas with Mandalorian, we know for a fact from photos stolen from set that they did shoot outside on a back lot in California, but at the same time they were also shooting in this volume set. The ability to go from one style set to another seamlessly is pretty amazing. So to me, and while I don't have the answer that I think they were looking for as far as how big, I also feel like with the parallax, all you need to do is really be able to fill up your room, because you're going to be able to to add perspective and change the depth based on what's I don't know. I'm no special effects expert, but I feel like
No,
I
you're on it. You're all right, yeah.
I, I feel
Yeah,
like
it's
it's
just the
yeah,
field because I can digitally manipulate it. You can make it look like it's either like this right behind me,
right.
or you can have it to where it looks like it's far in the distance. I mean, it's funny because I actually just watched The Rise of Skywalker again just over dinner, and there are still going to be things like you can't beat seeing the Wadi Rum, and I mean,
Right.
there are still going to be times you need those epic vistas and things. But again, I think for this, it's just, yeah, so excited. Yeah. And again, I think to try to get the industry back and keeping this safe kind of controlled environment. I don't think they obviously knew what they, because it was, going on nearly 2 years ago now, but like there's even now a way to kind of help keep people safe and go back to work and be on set and things like that by also being in this smaller kind of volume, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. And I also, the things I think that you don't realize at times is that you have um eh, they can create these sort of full size um uh, they could fill in all the people, like, so for with Lord of the Rings, where you had all the created characters, right, the all the digital, you could actually put them on the screen behind you, like you're actually in that room with 5,000 soldiers, which you couldn't do before. So it's all very interesting.
Actually, you bring up a very good point I didn't think about. That's the other thing now because it's screens, crowd simulation is a very big thing in visual effects. I mean, it's in the latest show that I was on, Cursed, that you could even do that. Like you could almost set extend a crowd
Yeah.
of people. I mean, it really, again, with by having that screens and that parallax, I know I'm becoming a broken record player, but the combinations are like endless. I'm so excited. I want to work on season 2 so bad, but I know they're doing it right now. I'm like, season 3, please.
Yeah,
But
I'm sure there'll be a season 3. That
oh,
would be
it's funny because like I left the company that was at to the Lion King, and then just happened to do Dark Crystal at a different company, and like they actually got to do some sequences of the Mandalorian, and they were just like, you left too soon. I was like,
yeah,
but
but
I'm very happy
you
for
said
them,
you
and
didn't want
yeah.
that. But can you imagine though? Just and this must be the toughest thing about being in visual effects is you would have known about the child before you get the chance
Well,
to see it. Yeah.
exactly.
So
Like, I think you asked me on your Around the Galaxy,
yeah,
like, have I worked at ILM? Is that a choice? Let me tell you, during the sequel trilogy, it was a deliberate choice.
yeah.
And it was also kind of one of those, I didn't feel I had the skill set,
Mhm.
5-6 years ago that I do now. So I'm knocking on some doors now. Come on, universe. But
We need you
no,
there. Yeah, yeah,
it's so yes, no, I don't think I would like having the child. I would actually be, because as an editor, we see all the sequences, like, I've seen a lot of things end up on the cutting room floor that I'm like, oh, like Alien Covenant. It was like, oh, there were some great scenes in Alien Covenant that just never made the final
you work on
cut,
Alien
kind of thing.
Covenant.
I was, again, the promotional editor, so I
Okay.
got to see. I had to learn the show so I could do the breakdowns and things, but yeah, the engineer scene, whew, that's intense. But anyway, this is not an Alien podcast, so yeah.
Well, I ended up talking about Star Trek uh, with Claudia Gray, so we can talk Alien here.
Yes.
So before I forget, I want to make sure that I talk about a couple things. If you know people who are not following Beyond the Blast Doors on YouTube, please have them follow us. When we hit 5,000, we're going to give away this awesome Darth Vader helmet. So we are, we're striking our way up there as quickly as we can. And in addition to that, if you want to sponsor, if you want to engage, we have the super chat thing, but I don't know how that works, so I'm not even going to talk about it. But we do have Patreon support available to us at Beyond the Blast Doors on patreon.com. I'm not going to spend a lot of time digging into that, but know that there are ways to support one of your favorite Star Wars shows. So Shannon, anything else you'd like to add to from what you've seen on the gallery that you want to make sure we talk about?
Let me just look at my notes just to make sure, because I'm always like, yeah, I think I pretty much, from that standpoint, covered everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm very excited.
What do you think they're going to show? I mean, we still have 3 episodes left. We've seen the actors. We've seen what I don't know what else they can
Yeah,
show.
because like when I saw that today was the practical one,
Yeah.
which I do want to give a shout out to Nick, did mention that there was forced perspective stuff in the Rise of Skywalker, which absolutely correct. It was the sandcrawler at the end, which I thought was very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a model. So yeah, there's still, that's the other thing. I love that they're kind of, and like they mentioned in today's episode of the gallery, that they had the blurg, a little bit of it being stop
Yes.
motion. I love those
Yeah.
little nods, and them talking about actually the monkey lizard, the Kowakian monkey lizard at Celebration. I was in that panel. I was in all of the side stages, but they're absolutely correct. That responds to seeing him in the spit that's what I knew I was going to love this show. Even my dad, who he doesn't know all the extended lore, but he was like, wait, isn't that the guy that's like from, so even he got it, kind of thing. But
awesome.
yeah. So I totally lost my train of thought, but yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, no, it's I was actually hoping for a full episode on the child, but I guess maybe it's probably better. I don't want it completely ruined. I mean, we all know it's a puppet, but and it's what I like is that I like that they didn't go all CG, not just because for all the reasons, but because even though it's a puppet, you look at it and you love it, and it's the cutest little thing in the world, and it's a puppet looking at it. I think that's part of the charm of it. That's part of
I would
the Star
agree.
Warsiness of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's a renaissance happening again. I think Dark Crystal really kick-started that, and then people really enjoying Babu Frick. I'm sorry, chat, you're gonna have to help me out. The actress that did it, like, she wanted to be there to puppeteer it. I mean, there's this kind of second renaissance coming for puppeteering, and it's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of artists and technicians that don't, that are needed, and like they talked about the maquettes and things.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I remember what your question was now. I'm not quite sure what else they're going to cover
Yeah.
because like I don't know. Like that, I thought they were going to end it with kind of Baby Yoda. So
Yeah.
your guess is certainly as good as mine. Like, I mean, they've talked about casting, they've talked about the directors. I
Right.
mean, yeah. So and that was the other thing I think that makes that puppet so cute is again, I was talking about the eyes in Digidoubles. Well, because you
Mhm.
have those actual reflections and things, he's just so stinking cute. Like I
Yeah.
loved.
He comes to life. It's really wild.
Oh, but
Much better
oh
than that
god.
thing. God, can you
Oh
imagine
my
that? Yeah,
god.
it's like, ugh.
Yeah. But you know what? I do love concept art and just it's amazing because that was the other thing I wanted to kind of end on saying. What
Yeah.
I also like about Favreau and Fioni that I've learned, the two Fs in
Yeah.
this gallery series, they they are willing to take risks but also go, "Yep, that didn't work." Like
Right.
they're
Right.
they're they're sharing with us the whole process. Like I loved that story where they were talking about having the guys in the suits and it just wasn't working
Yep.
and things because I think there's something humbling and almost like enduring with someone's going, yeah, we tried that, but you know what? It just didn't work. Same
Right.
thing they mentioned in today's episode. Like, yeah, we had a digital version of Baby Yoda or the baby. I always
Yes.
was like, are they trying not to slip the name? But
Yeah. Yeah.
but
I'm
they
waiting for them to
decided,
let something sneak through.
do you know what? I don't want to know its name. It's
I
one
don't
of
either.
those, like, we're all gonna be disappointed because we all have it's like the back to 2015 when we were, like, picking out who's Rey, and
Right.
then everyone's theory, someone's gonna be disappointed, like,
Right.
I don't wanna know. I almost want
Yep.
that to just stay a mystery, or he's given a name or something, I
I
don't
wonder
know,
if
like,
they'll
it's
do that. That's a really interesting thought because where can they go with this series? In it's they're now on that sort of sophomore, sort of shaky ground, right? Because
mm,
between that and what we're hearing about all the potential characters we're going to see, all the actors that keep falling into the conversation, and yeah, and then the other question I have is, do they? Is this the last season for Baby Yoda, or does he become a permanent part of it? I mean, how much of the Mandalorian is Baby Yoda now?
but, I and it's funny because this is why I'm very excited for this kind of upcoming project I'm doing is with the moment Star Wars spoke to me as a father was because The Mandalorian has so many paternal kind of things I was not expecting. And so
Right.
I almost feel like that's kind of the backbone of the show. Is like
Right.
you're having this rough and gritty character who didn't really have he had a family because he obviously had his clan or his VOD
Right.
from the Mandalorians, but that father figure. So he's kind of almost kind of like, how do I do this? So I
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, I could see that being a through line, and what's going to happen when Baby Yoda hits the terrible twos, and so, I mean, he's already being a bit of a stinker, like touching things when he's not supposed to, but
Right.
I don't know. So I almost think they might keep it, not because of, oh, that's going to give us money, but I also do see it as kind of a through line of that character arc
Yeah.
and things. So I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
know.
I wonder. It's interesting. One thing that we'll never know is, like, has the plan always been? Because I agree. I think the Mandalorian without the child, with that sort of role he has to play, is not going to be the same. And of course, none of us expected that to be what the most important piece of this series was. We expected it was just going to be some gunslinger doing this and that and
Exactly.
whatever that was going to be. But now that we see he needs to be, he needs to run with a child as part of his. I think that that's everything, and I think it's going to, that evolution needs to stay there. So, where I was going with this is, I wonder if how much of the story, if Baby Yoda was poorly received, right? If it was sort of
Mm,
like, because I mean, look, that was a possibility. I mean, nobody
yes.
could have predicted that. And as they were saying, I think on the episode today about, there's just sort of that magic that happens. You just don't know what you're going to get from it. And if that magic that came from Baby Yoda is now something that needs to I think it needs to stay in the series. I think he needs to be there.
Yeah.
We're saying that, of course, before we see anything with season 2, which could blow us away. Just like I've been saying, I don't need the Kenobi series, and I know I'm going to love that and just be surprised by it. And as long as Filoni is telling good stories, I think that we're going to be in a good spot.
Yeah, definitely. I just hope that we're not. I know obviously everything, all these speculations and things happen. I genuinely hope we're not getting a whole bunch of surprises ruined for season 2.
Yeah,
My hot take is I think it's just one giant flashback. That's
yeah,
gonna be like, because they all seem to be Clone War era characters, so it's
yep.
like that could be. I'm hoping so that way it is one of those, I'm hoping in like October, November, we're all gonna come back on here and go, yeah, I
Mhm.
remember we thought it was gonna be this whole story arc. Yeah, it was literally, a 30-second shot.
Yeah. Well, I
you
mean,
know,
Jerry from Bombay Cast said last week, we were talking about how, you know, we could get Katie Sackhoff as Bo-Katan just to see her get killed and lose the dark saber, right? And you're right, it could be. I would not be averse to a short. I would look. Give me what is it? Cobb Vanth, and let's have. I would love the Boba Fett Mandalorian sort of uh, sort of deal, right? Sort of what is a real Mandalorian versus not, etc.
correct.
That would be cool. Um, and I think it would be kind of cool to see those two helmets in the same scene together. But I do agree. I don't. If you want to give me an Ahsoka Rex series live action, cool. But don't give me 5 of the 8 episodes that way. I'm with. I would love it to be maybe one episode where we sort of see how it all happened. I don't know, but
Mm.
I think your hot take is a really good one. I'm glad to hear you say it because I think somewhere in my head I thought it, but didn't really process it. But I think
Well, I
that's the
guess
right way to
because for
do it.
me, it's also one of those, why cast Katie Sackhoff, but then you're not going to voice the person who has been the champion for Ahsoka Tano.
Right.
Actually, it doesn't add up, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Part of me also thinks some of these things we're hearing, it's not even season 2. Some of them might be season 3.
Well,
You know,
I'm with you on that because I think we know season 2 has to be completed
yes,
because
it's completed. They're doing the visual effects
yeah, and they're
now,
saying
and
it's not
it's,
going to
thank
miss its
God, it's going to
October
be,
timeline, and yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, and I think it's possible. What I've predicted on Ahsoka, and I'm sure I'm wrong, but Ahsoka is going to show up at the end. She's going to be the black saber or the dark saber of season 2, and possibly spin off into her own show at that point or something. I don't know. Um, but I like the idea of either a, a medium to full size flashback of seeing some of this stuff that we saw in the Clone Wars and make those connections. But I don't think we need much more than that.
yeah. Well, because I guess for me, what made The Mandalorian so strong was I'm invested in brand new characters that aren't tied to really any
Right.
legacy
Yep.
things. The only thing legacy tied is having characters look similar to ones we already know, i.e., a
Yep.
Yoda and an IG-88 and a Boba Fett. So
Yep.
I worry we're going to lose a little bit of that if we start going into these legacy characters on things. But again, time will tell. We will
Yes.
have this
We'll have this
conversation in October,
conversation.
November.
Exactly. Exactly. And you know what it's going to be? It's going to be like, I had no idea it was going to do that. It's going to be so cool. It's going to be great.
I want to be like, okay, great. I was completely thrown off base. Like, I don't want to be right. I don't want to be like, oh yeah, it's going to be all these. No,
Totally.
surprise me.
100%. So Shannon, what's coming up on your show over the next couple of weeks? Anything fun and
Yeah.
cool?
So the ship is kind of staying in the hangar for a bit. So the Planet podcasts are kind of stopping just for a little bit because I'm working on the moment Star Wars spoke to me as a dad, and actually another one that's kind of for the LGBT community called the moment Star Wars spoke to me with love, and we have 2 more. So it's kind of just kind of starting with that, and
That's
I
cool.
do some kind of game streams, but it's English lunchtime. So I think all the American viewers will be still in bed, but I do that on Twitch and things because I'm
I I I catch those.
badly playing Jedi Fallen Order right now.
I try to catch those um, as we do. And also, I want to mention before I forget, the Bombad Cast is coming up on their 50th episode. And if you want to call and leave them, Shannon, we should do this ourselves. Leave them a
Mm.
message on congratulating them on their 50th episode, you can call 3312 Beyond. 3312 Beyond. That is the official Beyond the Blast Doors phone number. You can call and leave a message for them there. That would be awesome. They would love to hear from you. Shannon, it was great to have you as a co-host tonight. I think we had a lot of fun. It was cool getting your perspective on the behind the scenes. I love all that stuff. It's really cool.
I could totally geek out for ages. I just hate the time change.
Oh, I know. We have to figure that out. So, but thank you so much for joining us, and we'll look for your show during. Oh, hello, Jackson. On our regular scheduled programming, and in the meantime, follow us all on at Streaming Star Wars, and go to beyondtheblastdoors.com and follow us on Twitter at BTBDnet. Shannon, thank you so much. This was a blast.
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you, David. Thank you for letting me take your seat. You can now graciously have it back.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you.